Good morning, church family. If you are visiting with us, we're glad you're here this morning. Please stick around. Give us an opportunity to say hello and get to know you. I've met some of you coming, bringing their kids here, starting in the fall. We're going to continue to see more families coming in, bringing and visiting. So we're always excited about that. I was telling them we have, when college starts up, we have this whole section over here that's normally filled up, and I'm excited to have those college students back. It brings up the energy level, and we have a lot of people traveling that are out right now, and so looking forward to school getting started. Harrison has given me a topic for that month, for August, and so I'm excited about to jump into that topic this morning. We're going to be talking about forgiveness. This is our theme for the month of June. And this is really a continuation of last week's lesson where I made a pretty bold statement, which was basically, if you have not forgiven somebody in your heart, you're not going to heaven. And we don't hear a lot of statements like that from the pulpit anymore. It's very kind of soft-souled, and so I'm not going to pull any punches on that. I think this is one that we need to get clued into and think about maybe a little bit more seriously than what we do. So, with that said, carry over from last Sunday. If I say student loan forgiveness, debt. Yeah, there's that too, right? I've noticed there's a lot of folks on social media who are kind of upset about having to pay back student loan debt. So the loans, some of the student loans are being forgiven. I had to take out student loans way back when, and I paid all those back for about 10 years. I had to make a monthly payment. And so now apparently there's some, and I don't want to get into the politics of it, but there's a lot of people upset about having to, I don't know how it works out, but collectively, some of the money that we pay the government is going to pay back some student loans. I don't know. But I talked last week about this sense of justice. And that's a good example of just it sits wrongly with us. It's like, wait, why should I forgive that debt when I didn't have anything to do with it? That's on you. And so we have this really built-in strong sense of justice in a lot of things. And that's just one example of many. Maybe a better example that's more applicable. If Leon loans me his vehicle to drive and I wreck it, it's totaled. There's probably the expectation from Leon that I'm going to replace that vehicle in some way, either monetarily, buy a new one, whatever. But forgiveness in the biblical sense is taking on that debt and saying, you know what? It puts me out. I'm either going to have to pay myself for a new vehicle, you don't have to repay me, or I'm going to go without a vehicle. I'm just going to go without a car. When Leon had nothing to do with it. He's suffering because of something I did. You get that? So that is the biblical sense, the biblical idea of forgiveness, is that we are so completely forgiving someone's debt to us, understanding that we're taking on the difficulty that comes with that. Leon's going to have to hitchhike or shell out more money for a car. So that sense of justice is something that really permeates our way of thinking when we talk about forgiving other people. This morning's lesson is going to be grounded in one parable. And so if you've got your Bibles with me, turn to 2 Samuel chapter 12. 2 Samuel chapter 12. I'm just going to read. This is the context here is after David, King David, has had an adulterous affair with Bathsheba. Okay. Beginning in verse 1, 2 Samuel chapter 12. And the Lord sent Nathan to David. He came to him and said to him, there were two men in a certain city, the one rich and the other poor. The rich man had very many flocks and herds, but the poor man had nothing but one little ewe lamb, which he had bought. And he brought it up, and it grew up with him and his children. It used to eat of his morsels and drink from his cup and lie in his arms, and it was like a daughter to him. So this is a family pet, a very cherished, beloved family pet. So you've got one rich man, he's got a whole lot of sheep and flocks and herds. So many he probably doesn't, he's lost count. And you have this poor man, he just has the one, and it's a family pet. Now, verse 4. Now there came a traveler to the rich man, and he was unwilling to take one of his own flock or herd to prepare for the guest who had come to him. But he took the poor man's lamb and prepared it for the man who had come to him. You get what happened there? Visitor comes to the rich man. He's got all the sheep. He's got too many to even count. And instead of taking one of his lambs for supper, he goes and he takes the one and only lamb that belongs to the poor man, kills it, and offers it up for supper. Now Nathan's presenting this story to David as if it's something that actually happened. So the king is standing there. He's listening to Nathan tell this story. And you could probably be there and see the fury in David just begin to rise as he's listening to Nathan tell him just the unjustness of it all. How dare he? And listen to what David says. Verse 5. Then David's anger was greatly kindled against the man, and he said to Nathan, as the Lord lives, the man who has done this deserves to die. And he shall restore the lamb fourfold because he did this thing and because he had no pity. David is mad. He wants this man put to death. And as the king, he could do it. And not only does he want the man put to death, he's going to take 4 times, fourfold the amount from the rich man and give it to this poor man. And then verse 7, Nathan said to David, you are the man. It's you, David. You did this. And he explains, if you want to read the rest of this, and I encourage you to go home today and dwell on this passage of Scripture and read what Nathan says to David because of what David did by having Uriah. This is a close friend of David, one of David's mighty men, the 30 mighty men. Close relationship. He takes his friend's wife and cheats on her. And he has Uriah, the husband, put out into battle and he's killed. He took what did not belong to him. And so Nathan says, you're the man. Having a little bit of trouble with advancement, AV people. There we go. All right, Matthew 18. Now we're gonna turn the corner just a little bit. Matthew chapter 18, verses 23 through 35. And this is Jesus talking, and he's going to give us another parable. And today's lesson is going to be bookended between these two parables. I'm going to make a few connections and then we're going to go celebrate dads. Therefore, verse 23, chapter 18 of Matthew, verse 23. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who wished to settle accounts with his servants. When he began to settle, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. And since he could not pay, his master ordered him to be sold, with his wife and children and all that he had, and payment to be made. So the servant fell on his knees, imploring him, have patience with me, and I will pay you everything." And out of pity for him, the master of the servant released him and forgave him the debt. But when that same servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii. And seizing him, he began to choke him, saying, "Pay what you owe." So his fellow servant fell down and pleaded with him, "Have patience with me, and I will pay you." He refused, and went and put him in prison until he should pay the debt. When his fellow servants saw what had taken place, they were greatly distressed, and they went and reported to their master all that had taken place. Then his master summoned him and said to him, "You wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you pleaded with me. And should not you have had mercy on your fellow servant as I had mercy on you?" And in anger his master delivered him to the jailers until he should pay all his debt. So also my heavenly Father will do to every one of you if you do not forgive your brother from your heart. Let me advance the slide. There we go. Okay, so I want to go through some takeaways from this Matthew chapter 18. First of all, 10,000 talents is mentioned. This is the first servant that owed his master 10,000 talents. And if you haven't heard or didn't know, 1 talent is equal to 1 year's worth of wages. And this servant owed 10,000. So that's 10,000 years worth of money. So basically, the takeaway here that you need to leave with is that this first servant that was forgiven his debt owed an immeasurable amount of money. Okay? The talent was the greatest currency denomination in the empire at this time. When Jesus tells this story, and 10,000 was the highest number for which the Greek language had a specific word. In other words, Jesus is presenting in vivid language such an infinite debt that can never, ever, ever be repaid. Okay. So let's look at the request. The servant asked the king to have patience, and he says, what to him? "I'm going to pay you back." Okay, well that's ridiculous. We know that there's no way that this servant was going to be able to pay the king back that amount. He's just offering lip service. He says, "I'll pay you back," and we know it's not possible. We owe a debt that cannot be repaid. Okay? So just hang on to that for a second. Let's look at the release. What happened after the request? Let's go to the next slide. The request followed or preceded the release. The king releases the servant. He forgives the debt. And the servant's request for patience, when he asks, "Please have patience with me," in Greek, that makrothumeo literally means to boil slowly. Patience is the ability to bear suffering rather than to give in to it. To absorb the debt yourself, like the car example that I gave you. You own something that is now destroyed. And so you absorb that debt. You don't hold the person responsible, accountable to pay you back for that debt. And that's what the king in this story is doing. The debt still has to be paid. There's consequences to the debt. It just means that forgiveness is you're taking on what is being taken away from you. You absorb it. Okay, let's look at what happens next in this parable, the new offense. The second servant owes the first servant the modern day equivalent of a day's worth of wages. A denarii was about what the person at this time would make in a day. So, let's assume you're working a $10 per hour job. Then it's $80. After you work a day, you get paid $80. Well, minus taxes. So much less than that, actually. But It's an insignificant amount compared to what the first servant owed the king. And notice that the second servant responds the same way that the forgiven servant responded to the king. He makes the same request. Have patience with me. But when the second servant can't immediately come up with the money, and he wasn't even being offered a time frame. Like you have this, it's like pay me back now. And when the second servant is not able to pay the first servant back the day's worth of wages, what does the first servant do that has already been forgiven his debt? He chokes his servant and has him thrown into jail. Okay, let's look at the next slide, the verdict. So word gets back to the king about what has happened. And rightly so, the king is upset when he hears what his servant, who he has already he's already forgiven the massive amount of debt. He's upset when he hears what his servant has turned around and done to the second servant. And he says, I showed you mercy, but you in turn around. And in summary, he's basically saying, how can you be so cruel and unforgiving after what I've done for you? How can you even think about going after you left me and what I forgave of you? How can you even think about going to your own servant and being so completely unforgiving? How can you do that? In what world is that okay for you to do? Do you not understand the amount of debt that I just forgave you? I have to pay for that. That's money that you will never be able to pay me back. And you owe your own servant just a little bit of stuff. It's not even going to affect you. And you have him and his family thrown into prison? How dare you? How dare you not extend the same grace that I have extended to you? Get out of my sight. You are now going into prison yourself. Next slide. And look at the warning for us. This is why I said last week, if you cannot forgive a person in your heart, you are going to spend eternity in the really bad place. Jesus says, it's not Craig saying this. Jesus says this with his own words. He says, so also, after telling this story, so also my heavenly Father will do to every one of you if you do not forgive your own brother from your heart. Church family, do we understand the implications of this? Do we truly understand how serious this is? If you are out walking around right now and you have a family member, you have a friend, you have somebody in your past that you have not forgiven, that you still get angry about when you think about it, that what they did to you years past. They may have said something to you, they may have done something to you, they may have stolen from you, they may have physically assaulted you or your family. And so when you think about them, you think, you know what, if I had the opportunity to get back at them, I'd do it. If that person crosses my paths again, I've got a line prepared for them. You better watch out, man. You better be real careful coming back into my presence again, because I'm going to unload on you. That's a heart that has not forgiven. And that attitude separates you from the graciousness that Jesus Christ has extended to all of us. You take that gift of grace and you say, I don't want it. Here you go. It's yours, because I'm going to hold on to my hatred and my pain and the damage that you caused me. I'm not going to let that go. I'm going to stay bitter about it. You don't have a place in God's kingdom if that's your attitude. So, next slide. The meaning is clear. Let's look at the parallels here real quickly. God is the king in this parable, and we're the servant. Which one? I believe that most of us here No. I believe all of us drift into the position of the first servant. And we all know, we can't escape this. We all owe an immeasurable debt that can never be paid back. Keep going through the slides. Just go ahead and pull the rest of them up. You see, that debt has been paid. Jesus took on what we owed. Somebody had to pay the debt, and it couldn't be us because we couldn't do it. So Jesus is the one that took on that debt. He paid it for us on the cross. We are all the forgiven servant in this story. The question is, what do you do with that? Church family, ask yourself that question. What are you going to do with that today, this week, this month? Are you going to continue to be blind to the fact that you've been forgiven such an enormous debt? And then you're going to walk out there and the slights that have been given to you over the years, you're just going to hold on to that? People that have said things to you that have upset you, that have hurt your feelings, you're just going to hold on to that? Because you understand where that puts you. If that's where you're at, you go to jail. You get tossed out. You get separated from the grace that Jesus has paid for you. See, in this story, I think we're all the man, just like David. And sometimes it takes another person, like Nathan, saying, no, you don't understand. You think you're cruising along this life and you're all good. You don't understand. You're the man. And you're the man. And you're the man. And we're all the man. And so what do we do with that? For me, what this looks like, I have to seriously reflect on this passage and understand and be self-aware enough to realize my ego and my pride have gotten in the way of me seeing the fact that I'm the man. And that this isn't anything that I'm going to be able to do on my own. This is something that's going to require us as church family to get together and get it right and get real. If you think you're going to do this on your own, I have really bad news for you. It's not going to happen. But here's the great news. This is why God established His church, the bride of Christ, because He understood we need each other. And part of the journey as a church family is that we get to figure this stuff out together. And I can use you as strength. And you can speak wisdom into me. And I can speak wisdom into you. And together we move past this idea of, yeah, they just better not cross me again because I'm going to hold on to that. To a place where we're like, you know what? Doesn't matter. It does not matter. I understand what has been done for me, and it is so enormous and so fantastic that how can I even begin to get upset with these little slights that are given to me? You want to come up here and hit me in the face? Come on, hit me in the face. I'm going to turn the other cheek. Here's a better side for you. You can get a better shot in on this side. Because in the scheme of things, it doesn't matter. My wife wants to do something like put rocks all across the yard. It doesn't matter. It's a great idea. Forgive me for saying that. I talked in class about this. If you're married, you understand. It's tough sometimes because that ego gets in the way. We need to understand that. We need to be able to rely on each other, embrace each other as family, and say, let's get this worked out together. So our hearts can truly forgive. That's where the rest of this month is going to be. We're going to focus, because that's scary. Where it's like, okay, you should leave here today thinking, okay, but man, how do I know if I've really forgiven somebody in my heart? Because Craig, what you're saying has really big, scary implications. So how do I know? How can I feel safe and secure knowing that I've truly forgiven somebody? What does that look like? That should be the question in your mind right now. And that's where we're going to end it. And hopefully you're going to come back next Sunday as we jump into what that actually looks like, so we can have that self-assurance knowing I'm good. Forgiveness, we check that box off. I am good going forward. Okay. Please come back. If you're just a Sunday morning person, I know everybody's busy on Wednesdays and you got stuff going. Come back on this week. We got some exciting stuff going on with the. I didn't know where Harrison was going with all of that. I thought he was reading some Ninja Warriors resume. What are you gonna? Where's Harrison? Where do you go? What are you gonna say when I get up there, Harrison? But really, what you should say is, here's my dad's resume. He had to deal with me. I love you all. I love being part of this church family. I'm excited about this year and all the stuff we've got going on. This is a great place to be. Listen, if you're here this morning and something's touched your heart and you feel like, I need help. I got to get the prayers of my brothers and sisters. Got to rally that up and support so I can help myself move past the place that I'm at now. If you have a need or you have a concern or you haven't been baptized into Christ, this is a great opportunity to do that. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Would you come forward as we stand together and sing?